Hello, everyone. My name is Bre Kimberling. I am an occupational health nurse at North Kansas City Hospital. And I've got a little presentation on humor today. Humor, the best medicine. All right, show of hands, show of virtual hands. Who thinks that humor or laughter plays a part in your physical health? Who thinks that they have a good sense of humor? Who wishes that their family or coworkers had a better sense of humor? Well, we can't fix them, but we can work on you today. So let's proceed with laughing or crying. Have you ever been in an emotional state where you have felt like you could just either laugh because it's so absurd or just cry because it's so absurd? They're very similar emotions. And we use that as a protective technique to kind of guard us from those traumatic events. So when I talk about this specific laughing or crying subject, I often think of my nursing career and my fellow nurses or first responders, right? These caregivers are caring for people, traumatic events happen. Let's say I'm on the unit, I have 5 or 6 patients. One of my patients codes. I have to do CPR in there, the patient doesn't make it. I have to tend to the family. It's traumatic for the family, it's traumatic for that patient, it's traumatic for everybody on that unit. And that emotional turmoil, I've got to pretty much stop that to then tend to my other patients. So say my next door, I have a grandma that's just been diagnosed with cancer. So I've got to put a different face on. And I think of the conversations I've had with my fellow nurses, and they're some of the strangest, but yet such sincere humor relationships I've ever had, because I think it is just such survival mode for us and for those people that do this kind of care. So it just kind of helps to distance you from what you just went through, detaches you. It's a coping mechanism for sure. And it helps to cleanse that body of an emotion. So if you think about it, if you've ever had a good laugh or had a good cry, we feel better afterwards, right? Now listen, we are going to go over a lot of benefits of laughter and humor in your life. And what I want you to take from this is to find a couple that resonate with you. Find those as your drivers to use more humor and laughter to improve your self-esteem or your mental state or your physical state. Laughter is like internal jogging. I read that somewhere and I was like, that is so true. It tones all your organs. It strengthens your abdomen. It is physically good for you. It is emotionally good for you, just like exercise. So find these little wins in your life to motivate you to use more laughter and humor. Some of the biggest ones I find important is diffuses conflict. I use this a lot. I feel like it breaks the ice down, or if it's a new person I'm meeting, a new group, try to throw in a couple of laughs and that just tones everyone down a little bit. It brings people together. It's a big social one for me. Everybody has that group of friends and there's the funny one in the group, right? And everybody likes that person. They always break the ice. They're always good to have around. So if you think about those people that are successful in your life, they often are able to laugh at themselves. They are able to take those daily hits, negative, as well as those positives in just an easier manner because of their resilience with humor. There are so many great benefits to laughter. It's been said to decrease your pain, help to lower anxiety or depression. It's even been said to lengthen your life. So one of the great benefits of this, laughter boosts your immune response. So when I say your immune response, I'm talking about the production of your natural killer cells, which are called white blood cells. I'm sure you guys have heard of those. White blood cells attack things like cancer, the common cold, foreign bacteria in your body. So it is literally defending off things that are trying to get you. It's also been known to combat depression. So when we laugh, there's a response of a rush of neuropeptides, which are also called messenger cells. And these messenger cells will carry hormones such as oxytocin or dopamine, I don't know if you've heard of those, into your bloodstream. And this is going to result in a better mood and a lightened feeling. So if you've ever had a good laugh and you've got kind of that high afterwards, that's the result of those hormones. So let's talk about those in a little bit more depth. You have a lot of hormones in your body, over 50, and they all have a different job. You have hormones that regulate your blood pressure. You have hormones that help regulate sexual reproduction. But let's talk about happy hormones, because we all want to be happy, right? We all like to feel good. And there are 4 main happy hormones: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. So dopamine, in regards to laughter, laughter can trigger the brain's emotional reward center. So it's known as the reward hormone. So it delivers a giant dose of feel-good dopamine after you laugh. You start craving more of that dopamine or that reward, so you want more of that laughter. Anytime you have any kind of pleasant experience. So often dopamine is related to eating food that you like, having sex, winning a game, earning money. It's also got a big role in how it controls your memory, your mood, your sleep, learning, concentration, and even body movements. So often people that have a deficit in dopamine, you want to think of people like ADHD, ADD. These people are trying to gain that reward again, that feeling again. People that have addictions often have a poor dopamine response. So you think of people that have a gambling addiction. They want to keep getting that feeling again. Alcoholism is another one. So dopamine is a very big hormone when it comes to just being happy and feeling good. Serotonin. When you laugh, this activates the release of serotonin, and this affects your whole body. It's a key hormone in stabilizing your mood, a feeling of well-being and happiness. Serotonin enables your brain cells and other nervous system cells to communicate with each other, such as in sleeping, eating, and digestion. So people that often have depression, they will take serotonin uptake inhibitors to increase that serotonin in your brain, which helps with that depression. All right, let's get down to oxytocin. This is the love hormone. So your hypothalamus in your brain, it controls functions like your blood pressure and your heart rate, your body temperature, digestion, and it also produces oxytocin. So this is also why we have such a great cardiac benefit when we laugh, because of that regulation that the oxytocin gives to our blood pressure and to our heart rate. Oxytocin is also a big one with reproduction, especially female reproduction. So if you think about, if you've ever known anybody that's been induced into labor, where they kind of start somebody's labor process for them to have a baby, we give them synthetic oxytocin, which is also called Pitocin, if you've heard that term. So it also helps with milk production after a female's had a baby, inducing labor. So it's a big mama hormone. It's a love hormone. All right, last one here is endorphins. So endorphins are a type of neurotransmitter or a messenger hormone in your body. It is also attached to your brain's reward center or your opioid receptors. So this carries signals to your nervous system. So the word endorphin comes from 2 words combined. Endogenous, meaning within the body, and morphine. So So they've combined those to make endorphins. I did not know that. I just found that out the other day when I was researching this presentation, which makes sense because it is related to your opioid receptors in your brain. So when you put all that together, it basically means that endorphins are your natural pain reliever. So they're a feel-good chemical because they make you feel better and get you into a positive state. Exercise is one of the biggest releasers of endorphins. So just, that's how you get that runner's high, if you've heard of that. People feel like they can just run forever because they get that rush of endorphins and they feel fantastic. All right, so that's the 4 main happy hormones. And let's see what we got up next. You all thought you were going to listen to this presentation and I was just going to be a stand-up comedian, and I'm sorry, I'm disappointing. You're going to get an anatomy lesson instead. You're going to get a science lecture. So here we go. So have you ever thought about what actually happens to your body when you laugh? Probably not. You probably haven't thought about that. But we've had a little bit of a intro to hormones, right? So when you laugh, you get that massive release of endorphins, that feel-good chemical, that natural painkiller, remember? Your heart rate increases, your facial muscles contract because you're smiling, and then you breathe a big old deep breath to let out your very unique ha ha ha, right? So this increases your levels of oxygen in the bloodstream, and you're going to have that feel-good endorphin high for a while after you've had that good laugh. So on this next slide, I'm going to show you some more sciencey stuff here, but we're going to talk about what your lungs actually do when you're laughing. Okay, check out this graph of us laughing. So this top one is us breathing, that in and out motion of a breath. Using your intercostal muscles brings our ribs moving in and out, so expanding and contracting, right? And then the second one is us talking. So this is really a unique thing specific to humans because most other animals cannot talk. So we have these really fine muscles in between our ribs that help us finesse that very specific movement to have our speech come out. The last one is laughing. And look at that, it's all over the place. So if you think about how this could be considered exercise, take a look at from what breathing does down to laughing. Pretty cool. I want you to think about your friendships and why you like the people that you like. And I bet that some of those reasons are their sense of humor. Social benefits of laughter and humor are huge. When you have a group of people that can get along, have a good time, you get a dopamine hit because you're having a good time, you're having fun. This is only going to make you want to do it more, right? So it is seen as promoting bonds, morale of the group. It attracts more people because they say you're having fun, so everybody wants to have fun, right? It's almost contagious in some manner. Just like, have you ever yawned and then the person next to you yawns because they were watching you do it? It's actually a phenomenon called mirror neurons. These are in your body and they kind of fire when they observe someone else doing a certain action, and our brain says we should do that too. So laughter is kind of like that. Somebody's got the giggles and then somebody else gets the giggles and then everybody's giggling and we don't really know why we're giggling, but we're giggling, right? So it helps keep us connected and it leads to better friendships, relationships. There's a lot of study going on around couples and why they stay together and what is considered romantic closeness. And one of those biggest factors is the ability to have a good time together and laugh together. You're 30 times more likely to laugh with someone than alone. Couples that laugh together stay married longer. And people that have enduring relationships are proven to outlive those that don't have very many friends or are unmarried. So there you go. Let's take a look at some of the research and studies that have gone on around this subject. Right here you see a picture of Herbert Leafcourt, and he a nice looking guy, looks like a kind soul. He did a lot of research on the effects of stress and health related to your sense of humor and how it would affect you. One of his main studies was he took 143 undergrad students. He had them do a self-assessment regarding their sense of humor on a scale. And what he found was the lower you scored yourself on this scale, the greater impact of stress on your life. Your ability to take a bad grade, your ability to handle a death of a loved one, a new job, versus the person that had a higher sense of self, sense of humor, the lesser the impact of those events. So better sense of humor equals a better response to stressful events in life, the ability to handle those punches and those changes based on your personal sense of humor. I like this because I feel we can learn from our own personal view and the surroundings, like that we really affect how we view stressors in life. And if we have the ability to just roll with it, laugh or cry, remember those are very similar, at situations, that we really do affect that interpretation of that event. So, you gotta just laugh at yourself. There is even a type of therapy for humor. Humor therapy is using the power of smiling and laughter to aid in healing. It's really a type of distraction that takes away from pain specifically. We actually use this in the hospital a little bit. Remember, I work at North Kansas City Hospital, and prior to the pandemic, we had an RN that rounded on all the patients that it was appropriate for. But she had a rolling toolbox. She dressed up in vintage nursing clothes, and she would go into these patients' room, and she would find what they liked and what made them laugh. So in these drawers, she had games. She had old westerns. She had funny movies or clips. She had dancing toys. She had all types of devices and things just to distract you by laughing or using something funny to distract you from your pain. And she was a big success, and the patients loved it. So that's a good example of what humor therapy could be. Another example would be laughter yoga. So on this next slide, I'm going to give you a little taste of what laughter yoga would be. What do you guys think about that laughter yoga? I watched that. I'm like, I probably would feel really stupid doing this. But I think it's one of those contagious things too that, once somebody starts doing it and everybody's acting silly, that you just kind of chime in. And I bet they feel amazing after it's done. But I find that laughter yoga very interesting. Okay, so we've been talking about some of the science behind this and the research that's been done. So in 1979, Norman Cousins, he published this book called Anatomy of an Illness, and he had been suffering from spondylitis, which is really just arthritis of your back, but he had chronic issues with that, with pain. He found that watching funny TV for like 10 minutes, and he was laughing, it gave him 2 hours of pain relief. So he wanted to encourage patients to take control over their pain and their wellness by having the ability to just distract themselves, which is really what this is a distraction technique from what's going on in their lives and how they're physically feeling. So I think there's a lot to be learned from that. And give it a try. If you're one of these people that has chronic pain, which so many of us do, try watching some videos on YouTube or putting on, get on Netflix and watch a stand-up comedy routine and see how your pain is afterwards. Did it really reduce it? Did it get rid of it? Did it just distract you from it? Am I being persuasive enough with my humor facts and trying to tell you that laughter really is great for you? I got some more interesting information here. So rats are tickled and they laugh. This is a good YouTube video to watch. So they put a rat in a box and there is a scientist basically kind of tickling their back. And they found that the rat would chase the hand around the box because they continued to want to be tickled. So they enjoyed it. So rats aren't the only ones that laugh, only animals, primates, monkeys, that makes sense, right? Dogs will laugh too. Now, these dogs and rats don't make the same noises that we make, but it's more of a breathy or a squeaky kind of laugh. Again, if you just want to pass some time on your break, I encourage you guys to look those up. So 1 minute of laughter can equal 45 minutes of relaxation. Have you guys ever gone to a comedy show and afterwards you are just chill, almost kind of tired, just from laughing? Another good statistic along that line is 39% decrease in tension simply by anticipating humor. So if you're going to a comedy show, you're going to have some calm just by anticipating going and knowing that you're going to laugh, or hanging out with some friends that you know are funny. 10 to 15 minutes of laughter a day can burn 40 calories. Hey, I'll take any calories I can burn. You're going to be 2 times more productive after taking a little humor break. So if you're burnt out at work, you are just over it, you need a little dopamine hit. I personally like some TikTok, pull out my phone, watch that for a couple minutes, and then I come back to it. I'm like, all right, let's get back to work. Also increases your memory. So some pretty good funny facts here. There's tons of them out there. So do some research on your own. All right, so that 10 minutes of laughter a day, burning 40 calories. Well, if you do 10 to 15 minutes of laughing, you can equal 5 minutes of running with bulls. It's another good example. Or 10 minutes of dancing, also equivalent. Or my personal favorite, 15 minutes of milking a cow. So I don't know if you got any of those skills. That's a pretty unique skill, but find your motivation to get out there and laugh. A lot of people think that work and humor are on the opposite ends of the spectrum, and feel like maybe it would be unprofessional, but actually 81% of employees approve of humor in the workplace, and they feel that it makes it more fun and more productive. People are usually paid more, they're happier with their job when there's a little bit of humor going on. Some also feel, will the boss approve? Is my boss going to want me to be funny, cracking jokes? Am I going to be seen as in a negative light? But studies have shown that 98% of CEOs prefer a candidate that has a sense of humor. And I think some of that comes back down to the ability to roll with, criticism or with a setback. A lot of times with our work, there's some negative things that go on, or bad vibes, or some toxic environments. So the ability to roll with it, have a sense of humor about a big project that everybody's stressed out about, is just going to make our lives easier and make you a better teammate. We spend 33.6% of our lives at work. Ugh, that's a long time. So, work doesn't have to be funny, but instead fun. Humor is not comedy necessarily, but it's more of an amusement. So I don't know if you guys are like this, but I will mind laugh is what I call it. I'm watching something on TV and I think in my mind, that's funny, but I don't outright laugh out loud, right? Or I might just smile. So those types of things still contribute to your well-being with a mind laugh or just a smile instead of just a full-blown crack up session, but there's still benefits to that. So using humor at work, having some fun, it's okay. We spend a lot of time communicating on our day to day, right? Especially at work. One of the first things I do when I come in is I sit down and get my coffee and I start checking my emails. The average person receives around 121 emails a day. Now, I know my boss way more than that. So you're also sending around 40 emails a day. A lot of those emails you probably don't even need or don't pertain to you. Um, and I am awful at this, and my coworkers often flip some crap at me, but if it's I can read the first two sentences. And if it is lengthy and it is boring, I'm just like, somebody else read it. Can you give me the cliff notes? I just do not have the attention span for it. So by using humor in your communication, you're going to be more effective. Uh, the email is efficient. Just because your communication style is efficient doesn't mean usually that. So humor gets people to pay attention. I probably would read way more of that lengthy email if they had some interesting facts at the beginning or a funny joke, right? Have you guys ever received an out of office reply that's just hilarious? Like I saw one the other day and it was out of office. I ate too much during my lunch break and now I need to lie down. So I'll get back to you once the Tums make their way through my system. Like that's just real. I think that's relatable and people are going to be more mindful of what you're trying to communicate to them. And it gets us to pay attention. So I encourage you to kind of branch out on your communication style and try to make your emails and your communication more effective. Are you funny? You might say to yourself, but Bre, I'm not funny, and this is really hard for me. Well, it's a skill. There are schools, Stanford is one of them, that offer business courses on humor in the workplace because they know that using this type of communication style is going to be way more effective and engaging. So just remember that it is a learned skill. And I feel a lot of my material I'm stealing from other people. You witness something, you're like, oh, I really like how they did that. That was funny. That was appropriate. That was a professional way of being humorous. Steal it, make it your own. So you've got to start with yourself with humor and to be funny. You got to laugh at yourself, be able to laugh at your mistakes, your goofs, and just let that roll off your shoulders because we all do it, right? We all make mistakes. So start watching more funny videos or sharing funny videos or photos or quotes with your colleagues. Like I said, a funny story about yourself. That's a great way to break the ice and open up because if you're offering vulnerability with that, then that's going to let people know, okay, I'm not intimidated by this person. Do you guys have a person that runs meetings and they always want to start off with a game or some kind of icebreaker? A lot of people just hate that. And I'm guilty too. Like sometimes like I just do not want to do this right now. Can we just get on with this meeting? But I never regret it. It's kind of like working out. I don't often want to work out, but I never regret it after I do it. So it just helps to diffuse the group. Um, so when you're trying to be funny or think you're being funny, you need to be able to read the room. Heavy on appropriate content, especially when you're in the workplace. So know your audience. Um, has your peers given you any clues that maybe they are receptive to humor? There's always that person in your office that's like, man, they're just a stick in the mud. Maybe they're hard to communicate with. You know, maybe that's not the best person to start your comedy routine on, but instead find somebody that, is receptive to that. Um, are there humorous topics that you think are funny, but maybe the group might consider taboo? Refrain from that. Um, does your recipient have a preferred type of humor? If you witness them joking about things that their dog does, maybe that's your cue that that's kind of what they like to talk about. Or they talk about slapstick type comedy or falling down, or they're watching videos on people falling. I do like people that fall down. I just think that's really funny. It's unfortunate, but um, and then some people might perceive you being trying to be funny or being funny as annoying or not caring or not taking the situation seriously. So go slow, read the room, be appropriate. Humors by different cultures. This is a subject I never gave much thought to. I didn't really think that, I just thought what was funny was funny. But, if you're traveling or you've traveled a lot, maybe you are not originally from the United States, or maybe you move somewhere and you think what, your culture thinks is funny is not to that other culture. So you got to be mindful of that. So I found this interesting. I'll kind of let you guys read through that, but um, different types of humor by culture. You think of British people, you want to think like Monty Python. Any Monty Python fans out there? They like puns, satire, pretty dry. I think of dry humor with British people. Several of these cultures, you want to avoid any jokes about religion. It's definitely taboo. Like Russia, no jokes about religion, and they don't find physical humor amusing. But then you go to Japan. Anybody like Wipeout? I love Wipeout. You guys know I like people that fall down. I just think it's hilarious. So physical humor to me is hilarious, and that's another thing that Japanese people like. Um, there was one out Norway, Finland, Sweden. Death, murder, destruction. Things here in the US, we don't usually joke about those things, but that's just how they roll. So, if you're struggling with a friend or somebody you just met or coworker that maybe they are new to the US or they're not originally from here, that maybe their sense of humor is different than yours, or they're coming at you and you're like, why are they talking about the death of their grandma? Well, it might be okay in their culture. So, good stuff there. Let's touch on you're trying to be funny or you thought you were funny and it didn't go well at all. So that'll be our next slide. So your jokes didn't go well, right? Some people perceive these, just like the different cultures, they can perceive you as maybe being unprofessional, incompetent. Maybe you're indifferent to their suffering. I used to do this talk for new nurses and how to use, they focused on humor and laughter with patients and how to improve their pain and discomfort. And one of the biggest key points that we need to remember and that I would tell these new nurses was that if they're really suffering and they don't feel good and you're trying to be funny with them and they're not laughing back, it's probably because they think you're not going to take them serious about their pain or their ailment or their surgery they just had. It's going to make it less credible. Could you guys see how they might think that? So you got to be mindful of what's going on in that person's life too. That's a big one. Um, inside jokes. These can hurt people and people can get kind of jealous. If you've got a tight group of people and you're talking about your inside jokes, you probably want to keep it within your little group and not let others hear because they might perceive it differently than what it's intended to. Humor, sometimes, I like to use it to break the ice. I like it to diffuse conflict, but sometimes in a serious situation, a critical timing situation, you want to avoid that. It's not appropriate at all. So, it didn't go well. That's how we learn, right? It's from previous experiences. That's how we gain knowledge. So if something didn't work one way, you know what? You got to try it a different way the next time. This quote resonated with me, and I think it's a good point of view to have in your life. So this is William Arthur Ward. A well-developed sense of humor is the pole that adds balance to your steps as you walk through the tightrope of life. So isn't that the truth? You've got to be able to navigate the good and the bad. And comedy is a fundamental part of human nature. Is there really such a thing as a completely humorous individual? Probably not. So I just want you guys to keep improving your sense of humor, laugh at yourselves, laugh at the funny side of life. The worst case scenario is that you'll just laugh a little more, right? So I want to thank you all for listening in today. And I hope you've gained maybe at least one or two little things to improve your day-to-day and your point of view. And feel free to email me if you guys have any questions. So have a good one. Thank you for listening.